year's title, Percy's Midnight Ride. Percy's Midnight Ride tells a story that begins the hijacking of a London Underground train back in 1972. The blue train raced across the tracks for almost 4 hours through the middle of the night with many frightened passengers. As it sped by numerous stations without stopping, witnesses reported the engineer's car to be empty. When the train finally came to a stop, the engineer, Percy Wilshire, was missing. No one ever knew the role he played in the hijacking, as they never heard from him again. The story eventually faded into London folklore until 20 years later, when the same blue line raced off into the night. Passengers screamed as they wondered what was happening. Some older adults began to recall the story of hijacking from their youth and knew that this must be the ghost of Percy and his midnight ride.
Chiawana High School. Is your band ready? You may now take the field for preliminary competition.
September 14th, 1972. The London Times reports a hijacked train in the London Underground. The blue train reportedly sped along the tracks for several hours through the middle of the night with over 100 frightened passengers. Authorities' attempts at communication failed. Onlookers reported the engineer's car at 4 a.m., the train mysteriously rolled into a station, came to a stop, and police Percy Wilshire. Not a soul heard from the engineer for decades. The story eventually faded into one of the many distant folktales in London's storied past.